Aaron Pelletier's family and friends did not speak outside court today, but his wife Dominique did address those inside the courtroom as she argued against this plea agreement.
Guilty.
Tuesday morning, Alex Oyola Sanchez pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. He accepted a plea bargain to face 18 years behind bars.
This defendant was driving a loaded pickup truck and veered into the breakdown lane where Trooper Pelletier was safely located and struck Trooper Pelletier. Trooper Pelletier passed away on the side of the highway.
In May last year, state police say Sanchez hit Pelletier as he was conducting a traffic stop on I-84 in Southington. Police say Pelletier was talking with the driver he pulled over when Sanchez's pickup truck crossed onto the shoulder, sideswiped Pelletier's cruiser, and hit him. Pelletier died at the scene. Sanchez kept driving on I-84 East until he reached the exit for Route 9. It was there his truck became disabled and police arrested him.
He consented to a blood draw and tested positive for numerous narcotic and illicit substances.
The 44-year-old was charged with manslaughter and evading responsibility, as well as DUI, driving without minimum insurance, and failure to slow down or move over for an emergency vehicle on the highway.
It has been 271 days since my husband was killed by the defendant. The horror, sadness, heartache, anger, and confusion I have felt since May 30th, 2024 has been unimaginable.
In court Tuesday, Pelletier's wife Dominique spoke against the plea deal.
My fear is that when this man is eligible for parole, our children will still be in the public school system, still minors, still juveniles. How am I supposed to protect them from this evil?
She argued Sanchez should serve 30 years behind bars, 15 years for the manslaughter charge and a consecutive 15 for evading responsibility.
Although the outcome of the sentencing won't change the fact that Aaron no longer walks this earth, I beg you to consider the timeline of events in the future years. How many more people does this person have to kill for the justice system to protect us all? I ask this court to ensure that no other family suffers as mine has, no other wife has to stand up and do what I'm currently doing, no other children have to grow up without their father, and no other trooper's sacrifice is met with anything less than the full weight of justice.
Alex Oyola Sanchez is due back in court to be sentenced April 29th. Reporting in New Britain, Emma Wolforst, Fox 61.
There are concerns in several Connecticut communities tonight after a man was granted conditional release from the state's psychiatric hospital. That man, Tyree Smith, was found not guilty by reason of insanity of killing a victim with an axe and eating the brain and one of the eyeballs of his victim.
Well, tonight, Fox 61's Kate Pattyfoot verifies, sorting fact from fiction, and she looks into some of the questions people are asking about this case on social media.
It's a case that has received a lot of attention in the state, especially in recent days. In 2011, Tyree Smith of Bridgeport was accused of killing Angel Gonzalez with an axe. Prosecutors say he then ate Gonzalez's brain and one of his eyeballs. Smith was found not guilty by reason of insanity in 2013 and was committed to a state psychiatric hospital for up to 60 years. Shortly after this information became public, we received an email from a viewer who asked, "Is it true that Connecticut released a cannibal into our streets?" So let's verify. Our sources, Michael Lawler, the acting associate dean at the Henry Lee College of Criminal Justice and Forensic Sciences at the University of New Haven, and Robert McDonald, a criminal justice lecturer at the University of New Haven. First, a question many have been asking: could someone like Smith be released so early from his sentence?
Courts usually assign a maximum number, but under the law, you could be released if you can get the approval of this board, which, as I said, in this particular case was unanimous. The track record here is very good. That, there's been no violent recidivism of anybody who's been released since this board was established 40 years ago.
Since Smith was found not guilty by reason of insanity, he is under the jurisdiction of the Psychiatric Security Review Board,
which consists of one psychiatrist, one psychologist, 2 community members, a victim advocate, and is chaired by a former state judge. And in this particular case, they apparently made a unanimous decision that this guy had reached the point where he could be safely supervised in the community.
So yes, his release from his sentencing is legitimate. Next, we asked Robert McDonald, what does being released to the community look like, and if Smith could be seen walking around town.
He's going to be supervised very heavily He's going to have to maintain his medications that will be administered by medical personnel. And the court will have the ability, or the commission will have the ability, if he doesn't abide by any of those conditions, to immediately put him back into the incarcerated state or the hospital state that he was in before.
So no, Smith won't be walking around alone, and our experts believe you'll probably never see him outside. Finally, we asked what happens if somehow Smith were to commit another heinous crime.
There'll be some serious discussions at that point. There may be some lawsuits. There may be some litigation. Again, these are not tried and true scientific decisions. There's a lot that goes into these things, a lot of testimony from the people in the facility where he was, his medical people, the various nurses and doctors that have been taking care of him, both on the medical side and the psychiatric side. So a lot of due diligence hopefully went into this, and hopefully that this is the right decision.
So if something were to happen down the road, yes, Smith could face further punishment, but that's all hypothetical at this point in time. At the hearing, Tyree Smith's care team testified and said his schizophrenia is in full remission. They also said he participates in group sessions and is showing continued psychiatric stability. Due to the coverage of this case, no one on the board released information on where he's living. With your Verify, I'm Kate Pattyfoot, Fox 61.
Buying a car and customizing it to your liking can take months or even years. That's the case for Angel Cardona, a Waterbury man who spent 4 years building this truck, and now all his work is gone due to one reckless driver.
One of my first words as a kid was car. It was like love at first sight, I guess.
Cars aren't just his passion.
My mirrors were custom made.
They're his livelihood.
From a guy in Arkansas.
That's why when Cardona woke up and looked at Ring camera footage, he was devastated at what he saw.
I cried a little bit. I can't lie, I cried a little bit. I woke up to a billion missed phone calls and text messages just showing me this truck.
A car on Hill Street drove past in a blur and smashed into Cardona's truck. Not only did it hit his truck, it spun out of control and knocked down a stop sign. The car rammed into a brick wall, stopping just short of hitting a home.
I'm happy that there was no people involved besides the driver, but it's kind of pathetic at the same time too that people are in such a rush to go nowhere, honestly.
Cardona's truck was a 4-year project.
Just bought these rims.
That costed thousands of dollars in parts and thousands of hours in labor.
I took the old motor, I built it, it's twin turboed. It makes about 800 horsepower. As you can tell, it's an older truck, so when I bought it, it had nothing but rust. I fixed all the rust on it, everything was brand new.
Even with years of progress erased, Cardona said he hopes his car sends a message to speeders on Hill Street.
You're not gonna always get lucky, you know? Put your foot on the other pedal and slow down.
Now, despite the extensive damage to the truck, Cardona says he's looking forward to the challenge of repairing it in the coming weeks. In Waterbury, Jamel Johnson, Fox 61.
Under this new proposal, Governor Lamont wants to make the property tax credit $350, and more people would be eligible for it. Leaders say it's a small step toward making the state a more affordable place to live.
Every time I go talking to people at doors, like lower taxes, get our taxes, property taxes lower. So that's constantly something that we're looking at and hearing from folks every day.
Newington Mayor John Trister says property owners in his community need a break.
We're in a spot now where people are hurting, and anything that we can do to help them, tax relief wise, is great. So I'm happy to be here to support the tax credit in the governor's bill.
And the Lamont administration hopes to deliver that relief through a new plan to increase and expand eligibility for the property tax credit.
$350 makes a difference.
His team says the $50 credit increase is expected to benefit about 800,000 filers and provide $85 million in tax relief, with the changes applying to single filers who make up to $130,000 a year and joint filers who make up to $160,000.
When you talk about affordability in the state of Connecticut, people often point to housing, the high cost of housing, and some of that is related to property tax. All different ways we can bring down the price of housing, the cost of housing, and property taxes, and it starts with another $50 in your pocket, hopefully by the end of this session.
In recent years, Connecticut saw a property tax credit as high as $500 and as low as $200. It currently sits at $300, and the commissioner of the State Department of Revenue Services says any increase makes a difference.
This $50 change might not seem like a lot to people, but this helps somebody buy another gallon of gas, maybe a little bit more milk that they need, or other kind of supplies, maybe some school supplies for their child.
And while cost of living challenges remain in Connecticut, leaders hope this proposal and other tax-saving measures will make Connecticut a more budget-friendly place to live.
And I think this proposal is just a recognition that the property tax burdens are so high on people across the state. It's a good step in the right direction.
These changes, if approved, would apply to the 2026-2027 fiscal year. In studio, Bridget Bjorlo, Fox 61.
A bill on the table in Connecticut is now attracting audiences nationwide.
A lawmaker in Connecticut is coming after movie theaters.
People have opinions on Senate Bill 797.
I like the proposal of this law. It's the worst idea ever for a few reasons.
Debate is raging among vloggers, national outlets like Barstool, and the thousands of people reposting and commenting on articles.
I've heard from a number of constituents over the years who were frustrated.
State Senator Martin Looney introduced the bill, which could fine theaters up to $1,000 per violation.
It comes under the general heading of truth in advertising and consumer protection.
We've already had so many challenges coming out of COVID, and we're still trying to crawl our way back. Another regulation and something that we have to do is just not helpful.
Then there are the critics, like Cinestudio Executive Director Lou Michaels.
We have films that are booked out in April right now. I have no idea what trailers will show before those films. So trying to put a time on a website when people want to buy tickets, it's just not practical.
Michaels and other theater industry leaders are raising several concerns with the bill.
I think there could be an issue with advertisers not wanting to be on screen if there aren't going to be people watching those ads, and that is a big income line for most theaters.
It seems what the theater owners are saying is that we need to trick you into being a captive audience.
Senator Looney is reading the reviews amid his other work at the state capitol.
We're dealing with a number of major issues this year.
And yes, he is surprised by how much attention the bill is getting.
It reminds me, there was years ago, there was a comedian named Robert Klein. And he did a bit one time, a stand-up bit, where he was portraying Shakespeare, getting noticed that his play Titus Andronicus was creating a great buzz and about awards. And he said, Titus Andronicus, he said, I'm the author of Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, Julius Caesar, Romeo and Juliet. Titus Andronicus?
As for the future of this bill, stay tuned. The General Law Committee is currently considering feedback from stakeholders like Lou, who spoke during a public hearing. And that committee has until March 24th to pass this bill out of committee and onto the full legislature for a vote. Reporting in Hartford, I'm Angelo Bavar, Fox 61.
Out here in Connecticut, winter nights can all look very similar. Dark, icy, and cold. And those were the conditions right here in Beacon Falls when a dog was found within an inch of her life just up the road on Church Street. Now, luckily, leaders say she's on the road to recovery.
This is Willow. She's a happy girl who just lived through a not so happy time. Here in Beacon Falls, 911 calls came in February 19th to the police department. Willow was seen nearby, all alone in sub-freezing temperatures. No one could catch her. That's when Police Corporal Jason Piccarello responded.
And she immediately laid down and crawled over to me, and I put the leash on her, and she walked away with me like we were best friends.
What was it like running into Willow?
It's heartbreaking. You hate to see any kind of animal in that kind of position. You want to do whatever you can to help them.
In your professional opinion, how bad was she?
I mean, it's definitely a neglect.
Jessica Moffo was the officer on call that night for Woodbridge Animal Control. Moffo told Fox 61 Willow was in bad shape. These photos were taken the same night from when she was brought in. You could see how skinny Willow was. Her ribs and spine clearly visible. Moffo said Willow was at least 15 pounds underweight. She had urine burns and was likely overbred. And things would not have ended well for Willow in this condition if she wasn't found.
It never gets easy seeing a dog in a condition that, the way she is. Hi, baby girl.
But now there's a path for justice. There's currently an active investigation into who was Willow's owner.
Good girl.
And why she ended up on Church Street.
We have no leads, but we're optimistic and we're not going to stop it. We're going to do our job and try to figure out who's responsible.
Anyone with any information about Willow is asked to either call Beacon Falls Police Department or Woodbridge Animal Control to help. But we have some good news on Willow. She is doing better, and we're told the plan is to eventually put her up for adoption so she can find a new family. But for now, in Beacon Falls, Stephen Reels, Fox 61.
Unquestionably, it has been quite a ride for this carousel piece, recovered after 4 decades.
It's been a circuitous route, but after 40 years, the sea monster is making another round.
We're getting this back after 40 years of MIA.
The figure was stolen. We kept our eyes out all these years, and here it's come back.
The co-owner of Quasi Amusement Park in Middlebury, George Francis, finally has his hippocampus. Stolen in 1985, the 125-year-old hand-carved sea monster is nearly home.
I get a phone call from this guy called Rock. And Rock says, George, this is Rock. You ever find that hippocampus, that sea dragon? I'm like, no, Rock, never did. And then he goes, I think I have it. And it turns out Rock is a broker for carousel pieces.
No one knows who took it 4 decades ago, but a grateful George has a piece of his family's history back.
1, 2, 3, up.
It's now part of the carnival atmosphere at WRF Designs in Plainville, where the restoration process is about to begin.
Let's lift him up a little bit and turn the pole.
Here, Bill Finkenstein and his team work on carousel keepsakes from around the world.
Prime, paint, and during that whole process, you're always looking for something special to pop up on the surface. And that's what's happening.
It is a new chapter for an old favorite. And as the saying goes, what comes around goes around. Or perhaps in the carousel world, what goes around comes around.
It probably won't be on the carousel, but we want to put it on display. We want to refurbish it back to its natural glory, and we're excited about it.
I'm touching the hands of the artist. I've gone back in time, and at this point, I enjoy that thought.
For me, it's nostalgic. For me, it's personal. For me, it's a very emotional thing to get it something back that's part of our history, part of the park's lineage. It's great to have her back.
In Plainville, Jim Altman, Fox 61.
The state's largest teachers union says Connecticut stands to lose more than $321 million in federal grant funding. Educators say that means a number of programs will be in jeopardy, especially those that focus on low-income families, early education for childhood, and high-need students as well.
Not only will our children's education be compromised, but their safety will be as well.
Darlene Wentworth is the mother of a freshman at Manchester High School. She says she's worried about her daughter's future if the promise of federal funding cuts to public education is delivered.
My daughter, she has multiple disabilities. She cannot speak. She can walk with assistance, and that was because of the school systems and the education she received.
The Trump administration continues to work on an executive order to begin to scale down the Department of Education. Just last week, that same department announced the elimination of more than $600 million in education grants.
I fear that this will also cause classrooms to be downsized, which will in turn cause children with vastly different special needs and ages to be placed in the same classroom. And this presents a safety issue, as many children require different levels of support.
The Connecticut Education Association says that means a $321 million budget cut for Connecticut public schools, meaning either local districts and taxpayers have to make up the difference or things get cut back.
This is painful for me because every kid that they're talking about today was me. Every chance that I have right now is because I had teachers in a school who gave a damn about me.
In Manchester alone, the district could lose $6.7 million in federal grant funding, but larger districts will take an even bigger hit. Take Waterbury, for instance. They could face a shortfall of $23.8 million, $22.5 million in Bridgeport, $21 million in New Haven, and $18.2 million in Hartford. And without all that federal funding, districts will be forced to make tough decisions involving cutting staff and student services that help keep children on track.
You eliminate these federal programs, you don't get off cheap. Local taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill.
Local leaders and educators are calling on the community to stand together and show support for public education investment through a statewide campaign to wear red next Tuesday, March 4th, and bring attention to those who could suffer the most from fewer funds.
Special needs students are our most vulnerable, and their needs should never be compromised.
One of the programs potentially on the chopping block is Head Start, which delivers education, health, nutrition, and parent support services to some of the poorest families in our community. Just in Manchester alone, federal funding provides $1.7 million specifically for that program, money that could potentially be taken away. In studio tonight, I'm Bridget Bjorlo, Fox 61.
Dan Negrelli's legacy was in part built here at Prince Tech High School in Hartford, where he was a computer applications teacher. In a statement, a spokesperson for the school system says he was a beloved mentor, colleague, and friend who touched the lives of students and staff in countless ways. From this school?
I thought it was fake, and I started to cry. He was just like very kind. He would always be in the cafeteria holding a sign, trying to let us go hiking with him.
To the mountains and slopes.
And just had this absolute love for the outdoors that he wanted to share with everyone. You know, specifically his wife and daughter, you know, they would frequently go on hikes. He was, you know, skiing with his daughter almost every weekend.
The loss of Dan Negrelli is being felt by many, including his sister-in-law, Tara Brinkman.
He was just this all-around great guy. You know, everyone enjoyed being around him.
Police in Utah say Negrelli appeared to have crashed into a tree at a ski resort near Salt Lake City Saturday afternoon. Investigators say he was wearing proper gear and a helmet.
Never could have predicted anything like this. He's, you know, does these trips with the boys every year.
Like his energy, his presence is just not there. Just good morning, have a good day. Just it's not the same.
Prince Tech student Ausinea Headley and others are also processing the tragedy.
The school is going to be missing a hardworking teacher, someone who cares for you, who wants you to succeed, wants the best for you, you know.
Negrelli was also a ski patroller at Ski Sundown in New Hartford. In a statement, a spokesperson for the ski resort called Negrelli a, quote, amazing guy, very outgoing, and the type of person everyone would gravitate towards.
No mountain was too high, no, you know, ski slope was too steep for Dan, you know, and he wanted everyone to know that.
The family has set up a GoFundMe page to support Negrelli's wife and daughter. You can find that link on our website, that is fox61.com. Reporting in Hartford, I'm Angelo Bavar, Fox 61.
So many people knew Dr. Tracy Wilson as an activist, a historian, and a trailblazer. But for others, including me, she was my high school history teacher and a significant role model. I spoke with people who knew her well, and they're choosing to share those stories and special memories they'll remember most about her. Dr. Tracy Wilson was many things, but her wife, Beth Bai, says she really cared about other people, and that's something she'll miss.
She was so kind to people and calm and accepting. That wasn't just her as a teacher, that was her as a mother and a wife and a grandmother. And I think, you know, I think we'll all miss her questions, because she was genuinely interested in you.
Former colleagues are remembering their coworker turned mentor. West Hartford Superintendent Paul Vicinis says he'll never forget how she created a course geared to African American history.
She wrote the curriculum for her. She taught in 10th grade with the full intent that these would be students that she could mentor, that she could inspire, who would then go on to take the AP course, most likely in their 12th grade year.
State Representative Tammy Exum looked back on a time when she wanted her son to take that same class.
I went to her and I said, I don't know, you know, would this be a good class placement for him? Because I think it was at that time maybe an AP class, and it would have been his first. And she said, oh, there's not a student who wants to learn that I can't teach.
Wilson and Bai were the first same-sex couple to be legally married in the state of Connecticut when same-sex marriage was legalized in 2008. Dr. Wilson taught at Conard High School for more than 30 years, and teachers like Steve Bassey and Sean O'Connor say they were always blown away by her.
Tracy was probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met. Yet she was always the first person to ask a question.
She became almost more motivated to both understand history, but also to give a voice to voiceless people.
She'll be most remembered by those who loved her as a go-getter, an activist, and a leader.
She believed that you had to participate and you had to, it's not always pretty. Sometimes you disagree with people you really like and you have to push. And she wasn't afraid to push.
Dr. Wilson's funeral will be held Thursday, March 6th, and the family tells me they're expecting a tremendous turnout from people that want to pay their respects. In West Hartford, Kay Pattyfoot, Fox 61.
So far, we are not aware of any public school district here in Connecticut openly making changes to diversity programs despite the Friday deadline.
Pulling the plug on diversity programs. It's the new guidance from the Trump administration in schools and colleges across the U.S.
There's a lot of concern about what does this mean? How could we be so devalued?
The directive came in the form of a letter on February 14th, giving schools 2 weeks to end policies that treat students differently based on race or risk losing federal funding. But Connecticut Education Association President Kate Diaz says the instruction is not a mandate.
The federal government actually does not have legal standing to tell local administrations they have to disband those efforts, because those are efforts that are dictated by local board policy, which supersede sort of federal rhetoric.
The Connecticut Board of Education backs up that claim. It sent a letter of its own Wednesday night informing schools that federal funding cannot be terminated without a multi-step legal process involving a hearing. And so far, the state's largest teachers union is not aware of any local districts changing curriculum or policy. But if they do, the union is ready for a fight. Here's the advice they're telling teachers.
Our direction to our teachers has been, you don't change your behavior, you don't change your curriculum, you don't change your activities unless you're directed to do that at the local level. And if our local municipalities kind of start putting that pressure on, then we'll have to go into a space where we challenge that authority as well.
And as schools scramble to respond to this latest threat, educators say they are also bracing for bold budget cuts at the Department of Education, a move that will have long-lasting ripple effects.
We have Congress being asked to cut $880 billion from the education budget at the national level. That's an action we should all be scared about, because that is legal. Congress has the power of the purse. If they choose not to spend the money on education, they don't have to.
And if those federal cuts happen as planned, it could impact programs for students with disabilities who are guaranteed services by law. That means if federal funding is stripped away, the burden would fall on local school districts and taxpayers to make up the difference. In studio, Bridget Piorlo, Fox 61.